buckle up your cosmic seatbelts. The Believe Me Movement guests who sit in the seat of honor on the Believe Me Movement podcast will share with us their personal experiences of either seeing a UFO, being abducted, or any paranormal experience that they are trying to make sense of. As you listen, you are about to have a mind-bending experience. Are you ready? We are not telling you what to think, but we do ask you to be open-minded because this show is an experience, not an explanation. What is the Believe Me Movement podcast? We offer you a relaxed and safe space for those of you courageous enough to share your profound and sometimes befuddling experiences as a live guest on our podcast. Today's guest is Dr. Nels Rasmussen. Dr. Nels Rasmussen was a co-host with me, and my name's Robin Alexis. He was a co-host on Mystic Radio with Robin Alexis for 3 years, and he is one extraordinary dude who you're going to learn was capable of being a chiropractor for 40 years and then up and changing his career into something that is mind-bending, and I'm going to let him talk to you about that later on in the show and how you can get a hold of him. But for right now, I want to let people know that if you want to be a guest on our show and share your story, you email me, spiritladyrobin@gmail.com. That's spiritladyrobin@gmail.com, and I will put you on the list. So how did this show get started? It's all Ken Sylvester's fault. Ken is a best-selling author. He's the best-selling author of the book We're Not Alone, and Here's the Proof. And me, Spirit Lady Robin Alexis, I have a book that's best-selling called A Conversation with Extraterrestrials. Well, the two of us authors got together, and our conversations were so outrageous, we decided that the show's book. And then Ken and I decided, hey, let's launch our own podcast called the Believe Me Movement, which we've just described to you what it is. So if you want to come on the show, you email spiritladyrobin@gmail.com, and the Believe Me Movement podcast is brought to you by robinalexis.com. Now, Ken, are you ready to bring on our guest to sit in the seat of honor of the Believe Me Movement podcast today?
Yes, Robin, I am, and we're looking forward to hearing from our guest, Dr. Nels, has to tell us. Dr. Nels, we're ready to listen to your story. Tell us what's happening.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Robin and Ken. It's really fun to be here. I haven't been with Robin on a show for quite a while, and just feels great. So, well, I don't really have any amazing story with UFOs to talk about, but perhaps telling about the kind of things I do and what Robin and I did on the show a little bit can get me warmed up here. When Robin and I worked together on the show, people would call in and she would find things in her way that were going on and that were troubling them. Some of them, as I recall from listening to many shows, is that there were some people who had paranormal experiences and certainly some UFO experiences. For me, my job is to kind of access the subconscious as it relates to the energy field of humans and animals, and particularly what happens to us in times of stress. So when a person or an animal, for that matter, gets into a situation that is very stressful to them, there will be feelings, emotions that come up, all in relationship to a fight or flight response. And when that happens, if the intensity is pretty great or if it goes on for very long, then those feelings and emotions get stuck in the energy field via the subconscious responses that the body makes automatically in times of stress. And so my job is to find those and then help the person to release them so that they don't stay stuck on an old response, and I mean a physiological response in their body that is probably troubling them after years, And we can release those, and that allows the body to then start functioning more in accordance with the way it was designed and not responding to old stressful information. Does that make sense, you two?
It sure does.
All right. So with that said, is there something more you want to ask me about it, or launch into one of you getting I often call them a tune-up or a reset?
Okay, if I might start. One thing that has come up, Robin had told me about her abduction story, and we added it to our book. And when she was hypnotized, she stated that Ken doesn't know it, but he's been abducted multiple times throughout his life. And I've been trying to find out if I have been abducted. I've been attempted to be hypnotized twice, unsuccessfully, so they weren't able to get into my subconscious at all. And just the last experience I had was just telling them what I told them during the interview, and nothing more came out of that. And I'm still trying to find out. I've had a couple things that indicated. I woke up one morning. I sleep in a recliner, and my left wrist was spraying when I woke up that morning, and there was a ring around where my wrist is, as if there had been some type of restraint. My right arm also hurt. I have a pinched nerve that flares up on the right side if I put pressure on my right arm. For instance, they were trying to check my blood pressure one time, and you know how tight that thing gets wrapped. Well, once that happens, then my arm will continue to hurt for a while after that. And so when I woke up that morning, my right arm was also in pain, and it also looked like I may have had some type of restraints on my right hand. Also on my left arm, there were 3 dots, and they were spaced equally apart in kind of a triangle. And that's the only time. And then I also felt like I had been taken, and possibly like by the men in black, to try and find out where my sources are, because I've come up with some spot-on information that rings really true, and I think they were trying to find out how I was able to obtain that information. That's the feeling that I had. But other than that, I've had no other indications or lost time. But I live alone, so that's kind of, I don't have any witnesses to tell me. So right. I've been wondering, and I was getting ready to go to another hypnotist or a hypnotherapist to see if this indeed has ever occurred in my life.
Yeah, okay. Well, this is interesting, very much. Well, my system, the way that I access the field and subconsciously stored information is different. We don't need to go through a hypnosis process. It's just me tuning in and finding what's going on. So I'm going to have you, let's just focus on, first of all, what you felt in your left wrist and that mark that you had on your left arm when you woke up that day. Think about that.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. And now I'm doing a little muscle test on my end, which tells me if your energy field had a response based on what you were just thinking about, and it did. So that's an indication that I can access some information. So I'm going to see what's there. All right, and the feeling that comes up, not too surprisingly, is powerlessness. So that was an overwhelming feeling during that time, or somehow related to the problem with your wrist and the mark that looked like a restraint. So I'm going to find out, well, what can we do to help you clear out that response that you made under that stressful time? So let's see what we do with that. And the feeling that we're going to use is the word good. And so the way to look at these feelings is each feeling or each word has a vibration, just like the color blue has a different vibration from the color red. And so what we're doing here is we're going to take this powerlessness that you experienced, and it got stuck in your field because of your automatic body responses going on, and we're going to substitute a vibration of good, and that's good about you being a good person. So I want you, Ken, to just focus on the word good, and then I'll find out what we can do to actually cause the shift to get away from that powerlessness feeling. Let's see what we do here.
Okay.
Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to have you close your eyes, and with just your eyes, look down like toward your chin and then a little bit to the right, just with eye movement. And then you're going to do a slow controlled breathing where you take a slow breath in, hold it for a few seconds, slowly breathe out, hold it out a few seconds, and just keep doing that slow controlled breathing, eyes closed, looking down to the right, and thinking the thought, good, and the number 7, good, 7, over and over. And I'm monitoring for any shift that's taking place. I'm feeling for a pulsation. That's an indication when we get that shift. Good, and 7. And there we go. We now have the pulsation, so you can breathe normally again and open your eyes. And just by way of a little reset, Ken, I want you to just look down towards the floor briefly and then look straight ahead again. That's a way to help put your conscious mind on notice that we're back. So then what we're going to do is we're going to retest and find out, did we get all of that stored up information around that left wrist situation, or is there more we need to find there? So focus again on what went on with your left wrist, the restraint marks, whatever pains you were experiencing on the left side particularly. Okay, and that is no longer reactive. And now here's the thing. You also had something going on your right side, which may also be related to the same experience, but it might provide us a different doorway into the experience, and perhaps we'll find something else that we can also release there. So what I want you to do now is focus on your right arm and what you were experiencing that morning in your right arm. And so now as you do that, I'm muscle testing, and again, that muscle test breaks indicating, yes, that opened a door. That's got some more energy stored in your field around that experience. And not real surprisingly to me is that the same feeling of powerlessness comes up there as well. So now I'm going to find out, what do we do with that? And this time we are going to replace it with the feeling of trust. And when I say trust, it's about, yes, trusting yourself, and also trusting in a higher power, something really big picture. If you believe in God, trust in God. Trust that what's happening in your life has all been perfect for you to experience. So focus on the word trust, and your subconscious will do the rest. Let's see what we find here. And we're going to do something very similar to last time. With your eyes closed, look down and to the right, and then you're going to take a breath in and hold your breath and think trust and the number 6. And I'll be monitoring on your occiput, the back of your head, for a shift on this one. Trust and 6. Starting to get some pulses coming through. Boom, boom. There we go. You can breathe normally again, Ken. And then with your eyes open, we'll have you do the reset, looking down toward the floor, and then bringing your head up to look straight ahead. And then we're going to double check and find out, did we clear all of that? So focus again on how your right arm felt that morning when you woke up. Okay, and that is no longer opening any doors. And then you talked about the little marks. Just to be sure, those little marks may have some significance that would open a door. So focus on what you saw there. Okay, and that does not open any new doors. So around that experience, we've cleared that much that I have access to based on what you talked to me about. But I'm going to also check in with a little different way. I have a little list of things I scan through to see if something else is going to pop up. So hang on just a moment.
Okay.
All right. I want you to focus on your right knee. Just focus your attention on your right knee. And that also opens a door. Let me see what comes up here. All right. And the feeling that is stored here is the feeling of domination. So something around that situation that your knee is responding to, and I don't know if you notice anything with your legs, but it kind of makes sense to me that if somebody was restraining your arms, they might well have restrained your legs. So let's see here. We found that feeling of domination. We're going to see what we can do about that. All right, and what we're going to do is substitute the feeling of perfection for the feeling of domination. And this is what I hinted about with the word trust, and that is that the experiences we have are perfect for us to experience on some level. So I want you to focus on the word perfection. And with your eyes closed, I want you to look down and to the left this time. And you're going to do that controlled breathing, the slow breath in and hold, the slow breath out and hold. Go ahead and do that. And you'll be thinking the word perfection and the number 7. And again, I'm monitoring on the occiput, the back of your head. Waiting for some pulses to come in here. Perfection and 7. And we're getting some bigger pulses, almost there. And there we go. Perfection, 7, and boom, you are done. Open your eyes. And then look toward the floor again, and then look straight ahead. And now I'm going to have you just focus your attention on your right knee. Okay, and that is no longer reactive. All right, so relative to that experience, it looks like I've cleaned out what I can find at the moment, unless you have something else you remember about that experience that might help me access more information.
No, except I ended up having to get a brace for the left hand because it was so bad and couldn't use it. And my right arm continues to hurt. In fact, before I go to bed each night, the right arm is still hurting in the same way it did when I woke up that morning.
Okay, and now, but you had also said that arm had been kind of a problem before, right? Is
yes,
that right?
It would have a flare up from the pinched nerve if I did writing for like 4 hours, because I have a tendency to press real hard when I write, and so and the blood pressure thing, and so knowing that, I avoided using my right hand or right arm to not flare it up.
Right.
But normally when some type of pressure was applied to it is when it hurt.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm checking, and that's not opening a door. Sometimes just talking about these things will. But, as we did on our show before, Robin, I'm wondering if this has opened any doors for you to access any more information for Ken.
Well, my question is maybe to both of you, isn't it an indication that Ken, in fact, was violently abducted, because his body doesn't lie. His body told him, and then you went in and you're actually witnessing what his body went through and helping his body to heal from the experience. So even though he doesn't remember it cognitively, his body remembered it. So wouldn't we say this is validation of your experience, Ken?
I'm not totally feeling that. Only because I'm not 100% sure that something else didn't occur that caused me to sprain my wrist while I was sleeping or caused my right arm to hurt.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. I can see where that would be difficult. And the associated feelings of powerlessness and domination might be clues, but once again, it's not conclusive evidence of exactly what happened, but it is certainly, in terms of the kind of feelings one might experience, they make sense. Let's put it that way.
Okay, then the other thing is there any way to check to see if, and Ken, if you don't want to do this, just say so, But is there any way to check to see if, in fact, he had an experience with these extraterrestrials, whether they came to him in his place of sleep, or did they take his astral body someplace else and then bring it back? Can you muscle test for that if Ken's okay with that?
Yes. I was doing it as you were talking because Ken's listening. So if he was having a physiological unconscious response to what you were talking about, it should have opened the door, and it didn't. So I guess I can't confirm what you're talking about there.
Okay. Well, I will tell you, Ken, that when Nels was working with you, I got images of these dark, probably dark gray to black, humanoid-looking things, sort of like, you see like the Zetas or the gray, not really the grays. It's not exactly that. It's not the shape of the head or even that light of a gray. It's a darker color. And I saw a group of them. So from a clairvoyant perspective, that was the first time I was ever able to see those types of things around you. I know when I was under hypnosis, I made that remark, but I didn't remember what that was about, other than what you and I have talked about with the Pleiadian ships. But that was the first time in regards to that night that I did clairvoyantly have those images. So if you want me to pursue that, Ken, I'll see if I can talk to those beings like I did like with Martha Childress. Do you want me to see? Oh, okay. So what I'm talking about here is I just channel basically from God things I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth. I just trust, and it comes through, and it seems to help people. And so Ken is giving me permission to do that. So what I'm doing is I'm looking to see if in Ken's Akashic records in this lifetime, did he give permission to have some sort of rough and tumble, controlling, domineering experience with this particular group of extraterrestrials? And instantly I see Ken's head shaking no, which means that those beings who did that to him would have broken universal law. Because if we don't give permission for something to happen, then these other beings, human or otherwise, are breaking universal law. So in a situation like that, we call in the Universal Police, and we call in the Karmic Board, we call in the Galactic Federation and the Intergalactic Council to hold those beings accountable for breaking universal law. And when they're held accountable, they're not just held accountable for what they did to Ken, but they're held accountable for the ripple effect of that. And actually, I can see that energy backing up. And before I say anything else to Ken about that, I want to know if Nels, Dr. Nels, as I'm speaking that and watching that energy kind of retract from Ken's space, is that something that you're picking up on the way you listen?
It's not showing up anything on my end. I'm not finding my muscle test is holding strong, so better keep going, Robin.
Okay, so when that sort of thing happens, that is when we humans learn that we have the right to say no to experiences. And I think a lot of times people think, oh, whatever an ET does to me, or someone who, we think have some kind of authority over us. No, we are sovereign. And now that Ken knows that those types of experiences can happen, he can now say in his Akashic records, null and void in ever having that experience again. I know that kind of thing can happen. Now that I know that, I'm going to say no, never again. Never again can you do that to me. So Ken, is that something you'd like to do?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go with your higher self and the overlighting diva of your preconception karmic boardroom, and we're going to go right in there, and you're going to sign a document with your soul and your soul team, null and void to ever having an experience like that again with beings who break universal law. I now know that can happen, and I know that's not for me. There you go. I just saw you sign it. Now I see you standing up. You're being brought out of the karmic boardroom, and you're coming back into your high self through your soul and your soul body, your spirit body, and into your physical body. And let's get you, there you go, nice and grounded. Okay, and from my perspective, I'm seeing a nice lightening up of your aura. So how do you feel, Ken?
Maybe just a little bit lighter, but
okay.
It's not a real strong feeling.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad to hear you say that. I think because you worked with Nels first, it probably would have been less dramatic. So that's actually the answer I was hoping that you would say. Now let's go back to Dr. Nels. Is there anything else that you picked up on when he was taking his power back on a soul level like that?
Well, relative to that experience in the karmic boardroom that you were working in there, I did not get anything in particular, but I am getting that I should have Ken do a few things with his right arm so I can see if there's another way to access information around what's been going on there. So would you like me to explore that a little bit further, Ken?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay. So now, does that arm bother you, like if you reach forward or up or out sideways or behind you? Are there movements that aggravate that?
No, not movements, time. So in other words, especially before bed, my arm was just sitting there on my couch. My right arm will hurt, and so that if I decide to sleep flat or sleep on my side, I have to sleep on the left side to make sure no additional pressure is put on that right arm because I won't be able to sleep.
Right. Okay. Well, just talking about that experience and what that's like opened a door. So that may give me something more to go for here that will help your arm out. So let's take a look. And we got right back to powerlessness. So there's still maybe some tendrils from that experience with the extraterrestrials, or it's possible it's something else. We do often, I should mention this just for our listeners, all of us often tend to have experiences that are very similar, kind of a repeating pattern sort of a thing, producing similar feelings in our body. So this could be that previous experience, or it could be more of a repeating pattern. Whatever the case, we're still dealing with a sense of powerlessness, and let me find out what we do with it this time. And we are going to replace that feeling of powerlessness, this time with the feeling of conscientious. So just focus on that word for a moment, Ken, conscientious. And with your eyes closed, you'll be looking down and to the right and doing that slow, controlled breathing, thinking conscientious and the number 7. Conscientious and the number 7. And I'm monitoring on your temples for this shift. Starting to get some pulsations. They're kind of uneven. And now they're coming in a little stronger, a little more balanced. And there we go. It's going boom, boom. So we've got that rebalance. Ken, you can open your eyes, breathe normally, and then do the reset by looking down and then back to straight ahead again. And then I want you to think again about what it's like before bed and what happens, how you have to sleep on the left side, and, think about that whole situation again. Okay, so now that is not aggravating anything. There's no muscle test break here. I remember you saying that if you wrote for a long time, that it would aggravate it. So think about writing. And that opens the door again. So this is good. We're finding lots of ways to access information that has to do with your right arm. And it goes right back to powerlessness again. And we're going to go back to perfection this time. So focus on the word perfection. And with your eyes closed, once again, you're going to look down and to the right. And I'm getting the information is you want to kind of look, at least in your mind's eye, you're looking down to the right toward your right wrist. And you're going to be thinking perfection and the number 7. And monitoring on your occiput for this one. Perfection and 7. Getting some pulsations coming in. And now they're evening out. Boom, boom. There we go. You can breathe normally again and do the reset, looking down and then back forward again. And then let's have you think again, Ken, about writing for a long time and what happens. Okay, and that is no longer reactive. Ken, do you have any other clues or ideas about your arm and like maybe when it first developed, when you first started noticing it? You mentioned a pinched nerve, and is there a way that came about?
Well, I think that if there was a restraint on there, that would cause that type of pain, because like I said, when they put a blood pressure cup on that side and tightened it up, so that's why I thought maybe there was something tight, because the pain was the same as when they took the blood pressure cup off my right arm, and I told them, to go to the left arm. And that pain lasted for a while. This is the first time it's lasted this long. It was hurting again last night. It's not hurting now. And one more thing I'd like to add is a friend of mine gave me some salve that was to relieve this type of pain, and he had been using it for his arthritis. And I wasn't willing to try it because he wanted me, originally I got it because I have really bad leg pain, which has gone on all my life. And it's too big an area, and I would use the whole tube. But I found the tube. I had never used it, and I used it on the spots where there was pain, and the pain disappeared for about 2 hours. And I was totally surprised, because I've never even really tried something like that before, that it worked so well, and that the spots that I put the salve on lasted about 2 hours, and then I repeated it again. And then I was going to buy it the other day at the store, and I forgot. But that's the only time I found anything that would stop or relieve the pain, and it was within 5 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, that's really fascinating. Well, if I was in your shoes, I'd probably go buy some more of that too.
Yeah, it's on the list.
Yeah. Yeah, because it sounds like it's got something going on. I don't suppose you know what the active ingredients in that are.
It is called, boy, I got it written down here, but I got so many lists right now going on. It's some type of sodium gel.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly. I got it listed on a list in another room.
Yeah, we can get that when you can actually tell the people what it is. But I want to jump in here, because while Ken Nels was working with you, the image of one of the ETs that I helped you cast away jumped right into my third eye and was not very happy with me. And I got a really good look of it. So I actually went online while you two were talking, and I put in the description of what I saw. And I think online they're making fun of it, but it's called a Xenomorphs. So Xenomorph, or I guess that's how you pronounce it.
A xenomorph. Yeah, it's pronounced xenomorph.
Okay, so the xenomorph, and it's coming back at me again. It's really angry that it took it away from you, because what I read a little bit online, Ken, is they're parasitic, and so when they latch onto you, they can like lay their little alien eggs or do whatever they're doing to try to reap whatever they want from your body. And so I think my personal opinion on this is that this has been going on for a really long time, which is probably why I said that in hypnosis. And these things have created maybe almost like a post-traumatic stress in you, that if you get into a certain position, even if they're not around, and it triggers that subconscious memory of what happened to you, then, you know, your biochemical everything is going to shift around, and then it could create these memories, and then the body starts hurting, and then someone like Dr. Nels comes along, and he can dig down into those places and recalibrate it so you're not running those survival programs of reaction to these ETs that have been coming at you. Because this thing, I'm going to have Nels take a look at me and when he's done with you, because this thing is totally in my field, and it's a little daunting. So, Ken, what do you think of that when I say that to you? Any response at all?
Yes, I'm wondering if it has been what has been triggering my spurts of anger that I've had, yesterday, and then back when I talked to Eric back in December 23rd, and one other time when I talked to Ted, where something occurs and it triggers an outburst of anger for me, and saying stuff that I normally don't say.
Absolutely, I'm feeling yes on that, and I'm almost getting like a little anxious and short of breath from even talking about it and feeling the intensity of this entity. So do you sometimes get panicky and you like catch your breath a little bit too?
No, I don't seem to have panic attacks. Anxiety, yes, but not panic.
Okay.
Well, I should probably step in and note that when he started talking about the anger situation, Ken, and recounting those past episodes, that opened a door. So you think I ought to go in there, Robin?
Oh, yes, because we've got this situation. If we can help Ken clear a suspected multiple alien abduction series, imagine what we could do when other people call into the show and we all work together to help each other to stop this from happening to us. So, Ken, if you're still open, let's get this done.
Let's go for it.
Okay. Well, and I tuned in, and that feeling of powerlessness was, it's still there. This thought that you were having about your anger and your anger responses brought that feeling out again. So, or another way to put it is, that feeling is causative. It's underlying the reasons why you were having the anger responses. So it makes sense with what Robin's talking about as well. So let's see what we do with this powerlessness this time. And we're going to go back to the feeling of trust. And with your eyes closed, this time, Ken, I want you to look to the right, not down or up, just to the right. And you're going to do the controlled breathing, thinking
with eyes closed?
Yes, with eyes closed.
Okay.
And thinking trust and the number 7 again. And I'll be monitoring again on your temples for this. See when that shift happens. Trust and 7. Trust and 7, releasing powerlessness and replacing with trust. Boom, boom. There we are. You can breathe normally again, and then do your reset, looking down and then straight ahead. And then think again about the situations in which you felt that anger welling up. Okay, and now that is no longer opening the door. So let's go back to you, Robin, now that we cleared that bit of energy out.
Well, when I look at Ken now, I feel like he has released everything he needed to release from being, you know, basically psychically raped by these beings that have been coming and doing this to him, and not having any support or understanding that it was even happening. And he's one of millions of us that this has been going on to. And thank God, Ken is willing to demonstrate through his own healing, being willing to work with you and me to show people, to show listeners, hey, you don't have to question or suffer anymore. These things are affecting your everyday reactions and responses to things, and it's impacting the wellness of your body. So we welcome you to be a guest on the Believe Me Movement podcast. Again, to do so, you email me at spiritladyrobin@gmail.com, and we'll make sure that if you are a guest who wants to work with Nels, that we get Nels back on the show with Ken and I, and you can work with the four of us. But for any reason, if you think you've seen a UFO, an alien, or you're not even sure, please, we welcome you onto the show. So
yeah, you may just have feelings of doubt, which is what I had.
Yes, and doubt is it's a monster. What it can do to a person. I'm so glad you said that, Ken. So
well, the doubt remains until it's either proven or disproven for me.
Yeah, but if you can have doubt without having a charge on it, where it doesn't cause angry outbursts, or you don't feel out of control because you know you can say, I'm not willing to have this experience anymore, you know, things can heal and you can still experience doubt. I mean, I certainly do. I've been, you know, a mystic since I was 3, and I've been doing this work for 35 years. And every time I open my mouth, whether I'm with a client or I'm doing a broadcast, there's always a voice in my head that says, what are you, nuts? But the other part of me has learned I'm not nuts, and I help people. All I got to do is put my ego aside and just let God work through me. So we can have doubt, but we don't need it to impact us in a way that we're not, that we don't feel we can move forward and do what we came here to do as a human being.
The doubt doesn't occur very often, and it's not very intense. Most of the time I'm very self-confident and it can figure things out by analyzing them and logging and writing stuff down and writing down the choices of what is causing my doubt, and then eliminate the ones that don't seem, and then using that to get me out of my doubt.
Deductive reasoning, that's really good self-management. So I hope people are listening or realizing that we're not alone, and here's the proof. And if you want to get Ken's book, it's on Amazon, and you go to look for We're Not Alone, and Here's the Proof by Ken Sylvester. My book is A Conversation with Extraterrestrials by Robin Alexis, and I've actually written 9 other books you can find. You can also learn what I do at robinalexis.com. Now, how about you, Nels? What do you want the listeners to know about you, and how can they find you and the work you do?
Right. If somebody wants to learn more about me and the things that I do, since they're not always in this context of, you know, working with people who have had alien encounters or may have had them, my website is healingministryforanimals.com. That's healingministryforanimals.com. And I call my business Healing Ministry for Animals because I do a lot of work with animals. I also do a lot of work with people. From a marketing standpoint, there's not that many people working with animals, so I like to put that right up front because those people need to find me when their dog's paralyzed and nothing's helping them. So when you go to my website, you will find some YouTube videos, and I have about 60 videos on YouTube that people can look at, kind of before and after stories of the animals that I've worked with, and perhaps a person or two as well.
I have a question that is on my list here, and it's on Bigfoot. Now, when I was doing my research, and I researched the Serpo Exchange, have you ever heard about the Serpo Exchange?
I have not.
It's where the Ebens had made a deal with President Eisenhower to take and have a scientific exchange, where they came here to Earth and took 12 scientists back to their planet for several years, and they in turn sent a representative here, which turned out to be just one person. But during that research, they contended that Bigfoot was a combination of Lemurians, Atlanteans, and an ape, and the DNA had been mixed thousands and thousands of years ago. Have you ever heard that explanation? Or
Yeah, what Robin has told me that I have Bigfoot. I live out in Idaho in a pretty wild place, I got to say. And there's at places on my property. I've only got 6.5 acres, and still there's places I haven't been. She says I've got some Bigfoot out here, and I see no reason to doubt because it is a wild place. What's your take on the Bigfoot here, Robin?
Well, as soon as you said that, Ken, I can actually see a Bigfoot clairvoyantly. That is one who guards Dr. Nels and his wife, and absolutely that is the truth. And I've never heard that before, Ken, so that's very exciting to me. And maybe what we could do is do it just a show on Bigfoot. I would love to take the time, especially if Dr. Nels' Bigfoot is willing to be interviewed. We could all come up with questions and do a show and ask him questions, and he can answer us.
I believe the listeners would like that very much too, because that's something that they still haven't proven either way. And I just watched the show last night again. It's on all the time, and they never just seem to get to capture the Bigfoot. In one episode, and this is why when I found out they were part Atlantean, it made sense because this guy had chased the Bigfoot to a river, and the Bigfoot didn't have time to get across it, and he didn't understand how it could disappear. And from my understanding of the Atlanteans is they are able to breathe underwater. So my thought is, yeah, he chased it to the water, it jumped in the water, and just is hiding under the water because it can breathe.
Well, that makes sense. The Bigfoot I'm talking to right now confirms that. So let's end this show for today on this interesting note of possibilities of helping people heal from their potential experiences of being abducted, like we did today with Dr. Nels and Ken, and a little bit of my input. And let's know that we are going to do a show where Ken and Dr. Nels and I will come up with some questions, and we will talk to a Bigfoot on an upcoming show. How does that sound? I can't wait to do it. So for today, thank you so much, Dr. Nels and Ken. You're always just such a open-minded, wonderful human being. I'm so glad I met both of you, actually. So over and out for today's show.
Over and out.